Hello, and welcome to the Church of the Burning Bush of the Most High. I am your pastor, the Reverend Roland Doobies. This is the Bushman Entertainment Network, and I am ready to unleash heavenly smoke upon the heretics in our midst, because that is what we do here. Sorry for the little bit of a distraction at the beginning there. It's been a strange evening at the Bushman Entertainment Network. Actually, the evening cruise was supposed to be on tonight, but they couldn't make it. So last minute they said, Pastor Doobies, would you throw us a blessing and do an episode? I said, you know what? It's a good time to do it. So let's do it. So here we are. I'm ready to bring you the word of the Lord and to hunt down the worst of the worst amongst us. Okay? Welcome to everyone in the chat. I see you across several platforms here, so we're doing really good. We're on Twitch, on YouTube, and we're on TikTok. So, as promised, last week we watched a video with, a couple of what I would say are sort of, mainstream at this point, conservative, evangelical Christians, and their view on a left-wing Christianity or a progressive Christianity. They read a book. I can't remember. Oh no, what was the guy's name? It almost came back to me. Because it was an interesting name. Oh, Christman. I don't remember his first name, but the Christ man. I was like, you gotta fucking side with this guy. He obviously has the name and the power. So, they kind of went through this dude's book in an hour-long podcast or so, and I watched it more to see how they handled the book, which honestly wasn't that terrible compared to other people that we will watch probably today. So not that terrible, but still there's a lot of Christian presuppositions, not even Christian, just American, right? A lot of ideas about a more Marxist or collectivist style of arranging economics, right? These guys that we watched last week were tame compared to the motherfuckers we're about to watch right now, okay? We're getting into the darkness in many respects, so get yourself ready. I wanted to show a few different sort of levels of conservative evangelicalism, because we need to root out the heretics, and it's really the only way to be a good Christian. Someday we'll study the book of Jude, and I will give my basis for why I say that. At one point in time, Pastor Doobie's brain doesn't work as well these days, but I had the entire epistle of Jude memorized, along with several other New Testament epistles. Straight to my dome. I could spit them. New King James, just ripping verses, bar. Pastor Doobie's. I'm saying I know my shit, right? I know my shit. These levels, though, are bad. They're really bad for the church, right? The first guys are just sort of like trapped in the normal dynamic boomers, Red Scare propaganda. They've received it their whole damn lives. They don't really even understand. You can give them oftentimes socialist policies, just don't attach it to socialism or to a particular individual who is associated with socialism, and they'll be on board, right? Like it's that kind of thing. Now we get into people that are a little more skilled in their malice. These people are, in a way, I mean, I guess it's pseudo-intellectual is really the best way to describe these guys, because there's a sense in which they're smart, right? They're able to like they use reason in a sense, but it is not reason that it's not true reason, right? Because there's something that they just assume right out of the gate. All reason must be based on the Bible and a specific interpretation of the biblical text, which is obviously informed by their culture and things like that, despite the fact that they deny this, right? Which is a shame, because it's really the only way to follow the Spirit. Like, you got to be self-critical. You have to be looking at yourself and say, maybe I do suck, right? Like everybody else. So maybe I should consider that I could be wrong. But, these guys, they don't do that. What they're very smart at is mental gymnastics. They are able to not only connect weird shit that doesn't deserve to be connected in the human mind, but they also are able to put it in a way that is very easy to digest for a lot of people, right? Because they're just using theological terms. It's like they know how to use words. They're very good with rhetoric. But there's nothing behind that rhetoric except cruelty. I guess we should move into it. I mean, I'm just sitting here pretending that that I have a lot to say. But I will have a lot to say about this. You will obviously be able to tell from the cover of this video as I move us over. I never even brought us into the sanctuary. Let's go to the altar. Come on. I mean, right out of the gate, you can see that we're going into dark areas, okay? We have Jeffrey Epstein next to Bernie Sanders, next to Chuck Schumer, next to Karl Marx, right? 4 Jewish gentlemen. Jewish collectivism versus European individualism. And I think that I think this is a false dichotomy. in all honesty, right out of the gate, the whole individualism versus collectivism thing is sort of an irreducible contradiction. They almost collapse into themselves. And all people who are individualist, inevitably, whether they look at it that way or not, are operating within a community, right? And people who are concerned about the collective have an impact on individuals and hopefully are taking account of that, which is generally how it works. But, just in case. So I guess let's get into it. I don't know what I'm going to watch here. I don't know what we're going to see. I'm a little bit nervous, to be frank, because I did watch a video last night, a couple prospective people that I might want to look into on the show. But after watching the video, I was a little bit, I'm a little bit more skeptical of doing that now. It's a little bit too intense. So I'm kind of hoping this isn't that bad, but if it is, it is. We're diving in. We're not going to fuck around.
Who's going to be joining us on the show. He has recently written The Culture of Critique. This is a book that's exploring Jewish influence.
Did I say who it is? This is Joel Webbin, and apparently, I'm guessing this Dr. Kevin McDonald is with him on the show. But we'll find out. They're at least looking at a book written by that dude. Joel Webbin is one of the up-and-coming Christian nationalists. He's been getting pushed in my YouTube algorithm for well over a year now, pretty swiftly. See, that's one of the cool things, I think, that if you pay attention to your YouTube algorithm, and I'm looking specifically for Christians that had an influence on me in my younger days, conservative evangelical types, right? I'm looking for people who have had similar experiences to me and leaving that side of the church for the actual church, and I'm also interested in figures that have sort of been coming to the foray. Is that how you say it? To the fore? Coming to the fore? And over the past few years since I have left the church, right? I mean, that church, not the church all around. Their fake, false church that they have over there. So this guy is one of the up-and-coming stars of the movement, and I guess that's what you should know if you didn't know it. And let's see.
Throughout the West over the centuries.
They want us
so we're
to
going
see.
to be asking him a series of questions and dealing with some of the history, understanding where we are, why we are, where we are, and where we might be heading. So that's today's episode. Stay tuned.
There's other things I like.
All right,
I
we're here.
very
Dr.
gonna
McDonald,
say
welcome to the show.
I'm gonna
Just right here at the intro, tell us a
We
little
have
bit
some
about
other
yourself.
junk
You
here,
were a
too.
teacher and professor for
Some
a long
other
time. So
false
what you
teacher.
taught, where you taught, and I guess a little bit of what inspired you all the way back in the day when you wrote the first edition to write this book and explore the themes that you did.
Yeah, as you were saying, I'm a retired professor. I spent about 30 years at Cal State Long Beach psychology department. And my background was in evolutionary biology. And, I combined evolutionary biology with psychology, but I got into the idea of groups as being important in evolution, which was quite controversial at the time. I came out with my first book on Judaism in 1994. And basically, it was about how Jews dealt with other peoples, how they disciplined their own people, and how they got on in the world in traditional societies. And then I wrote a book in 1998 on anti-Semitism. And as an evolutionary biologist, I did not think that it was entirely the fault of non-Jews. And so, each one of those, the major outbreaks of anti-Semitism throughout history, in my view, is that they involved Jewish behavior that the non-Jews disliked. Jews have a long history of making alliances with elites at the top of the society. In traditional societies, it would be the kings, the aristocracy, and when the aristocracy was oppressive, the Jews were the face of that. They were into money lending, and the aristocracy took a cut of that. They were into tax collecting. The aristocracy, of course, took.
Sorry, while I'm listening to this, I'm also trying to do a little research on the side, because I don't know who this guy McDonald is. So I'm looking at his Wikipedia. I guess I should just bring it over. It probably makes more sense. So I'm not going to do a deep dive right now, but I'm seeing obviously connections to David Duke, Ku Klux Klan leader. David Duke praised his work on his website. Apparently, his what did I see earlier? Southern Poverty Law Center and the Apartheid Defense League, which doesn't really mean much to me, say he's an anti-Semite. Whatever with some of these organizations, but that seems to be the general reception of his work. I saw that his first book or something early that he wrote was mixed reviews, sort of. People not really that intense about it, but here it is. A People That Dwell Alone received mixed reviews from scholars. His subsequent books were less well received. Let's see what his ideas are here. He's best known for his promotion of an anti-Semitic theory, according to which Western Jews have tended to be politically liberal and involved in politically or sexually transgressive social, philosophical, and artistic movements because he asserts Jews have biologically evolved to undermine the societies in which they live. In short, McDonald argues that Jews have evolved to be highly ethnocentric and hostile to the interests of white people, a racial category of which he considers Jewish people not to be a part. In an interview with Tablet magazine in 2020, McDonald said Jews are just going to destroy white power completely and destroy America as a white country. Okay, all right. So this is who we're dealing with, right? This is this guy. He is being interviewed by someone that is being pushed pretty heavily as someone who is following other reformed and conservative Christian accounts. you know, so I can say that as I try to curate my algorithm in some respects, like it's whatever, like I follow what I follow. There are certain things that I actually like that I follow, but there are equally as many, if not more, accounts that are more about my research and trying to figure out, like, you know, to get to the heart of some of this stuff and make it accessible to a broader segment of the population, so this, you know, people can know what the fuck's going on with these psychopaths. But let's get back to it. We haven't even really started yet.
Kind of that, and so they were much hated, really throughout history. And they did not have much power, really. They had some power, and they were always connected with these elites. But when you had the Enlightenment, their power really changed, took off, and they got involved in the media. They got involved in universities. The book on anti-Semitism was called Separation as Discontents, 1998. And the same year, it started out as one book, but it became two. It took a long time to get this published. But it got published by the same academic publisher as the first one, the Prager publisher. And so it came out in 1998. And the idea there was that it's just focusing on the 20th century and on Jewish influence and what are they up to, what do they want, and so that again, it was controversial in my field to have the idea that groups were important. I got the idea originally in the 1980s.
Yeah, I mean, this is just straight Nazi shit, right? It's weird in a certain respect to me, right? Just because I was maybe naive and didn't come to like my consciousness until like many years after it probably should have. There's a big focus within right-wing Christianity, especially those that are more on the conspiratorial side. That's basically most, if not all of them these days. But I mean, when I was younger and when I was a Christian, and we're talking at this point, you know, we're getting into it, right? 15, 20, 25 years ago, this range, right? And there was a real push in those circles to believe that what the left and what the Democrats were all about was eugenics, right? And abortion would kind of like come to the forefront, and that'd be like, oh yeah, well, this person that created, what's their name? I can't think of it right now, it doesn't matter. That founded Planned Parenthood. Yeah, she was a eugenicist, so therefore, like, every abortion has that motive and blah, 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 making it seem like equal to or worse than the Holocausts on many occasions. They would definitely, talk like that regularly about this subject of abortion. But I didn't realize, because I was wrapped up in the propaganda and in that way of reading the Bible and viewing the world, that they're the ones that have always been the most focused on eugenics. And it's something that is very clear to my mind now, since the overturning of Roe, right? And the extreme emphasis of people, not even just in the Christian right, but in like technocratic, oligarchic right of Silicon Valley and stuff, like those dudes, there's a huge focus on reproducing that is approaching the level of psychosis, if not just outright psychotic. These guys are the ones that have always been focused on it. And so despite the fact that I was warned against the threats of the left and the liberals, because they're so like, they believe in like social Darwinism and stuff. It's like, no, man, these are the guys that believe in that shit. They do phrenology and stuff. They're rubbing skulls. And like, this is crazy. This is crazy talk. It's absolute insanity. And man, it's weird, because it's like everything that they're critical of, they're just telling on themselves.
They talk about the Spartans. what they would do is they take their children away from their parents.
Big
They
John, what up?
would train all the boys to be soldiers, and they were a huge military force to be reckoned with in the ancient
What's up,
world.
everybody on TikTok? Everybody on Twitch, dude.
But
What up?
the cultural critique is all about culture and about Jews got involved in the media, they got involved in universities, and so on. So so that was the first edition, was 1998. The second edition came out in 2002, and this is the third edition of Cultural Critique. It's got a fan base,
This is
shall we
his
say.
main book
It's
that
been
we were talking about.
quite well known in certain circles. And the idea, again, is about Jewish influence in the 20th century. So I have chapters on Jews on the left. I have chapters on, because there's just a long history of Jews being involved with the left going back to the 19th century. And a chapter on psychoanalysis. I have a chapter on the
Freud.
neoconservatives, which is new to the third edition. Because when I wrote the original 1998, the neoconservatives weren't that important. They were hardly well known, but actually, if I was paying attention, they were pretty well known even then. But after 2002, you started to see 2003, the war in Iraq, and neocons were all over that, and there was some deception involved and a lot of that sort of thing. And so that was another chapter, and brought that up to date. They're still very powerful, and Marco Rubio is often considered a neocon. But
I have a question.
Yes.
I was just going to ask, you're writing, and focusing on groups. You've said that a couple of times, and I think that's really important because I don't think that the typical Westerner, especially of European descent, thinks in terms of groups. Maybe thinks in terms of groups if we're talking about group identity in the realm of politics or the realm of religion, but certainly not ethnically. Whereas I'm under the impression, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think that ethnically speaking, virtually every people in the world thinks of themselves as a group to varying degrees, except for white people. And so if I was drawing a spectrum, right? I think that's fair to say. So I think that if I was like drawing, it's a sliding scale, a spectrum.
We don't, but there's this very simple explanation for that. It's that we are the default. We're the zero level in our minds, right? It's that presupposition. We don't have to think of it. We've been so dominant in the West and in the United States of America for so long that we don't think about us as white. We just think about us as being normal. And deviation from the way we operate, right? And even saying we is kind of a joke, right? Because whether or not you get accepted into white culture depends on much of what white power needs, right? As someone who is, part Irish and part Polish, my ancestors were not white, right? When they came here, they became white over time. So I can't speak for what it was like for my ancestors, but in my experience as a kid, like of the 80s and 90s, my experience was like more of an attempt to be like less concerned with that identity. That's like, to me, I was less concerned about being Irish or Polish. I was trying to be American and white, but I wouldn't call it white, right? Like, it was just about being American, right? But that comes with a lot of assumptions. When you're being trained to understand what it means to be an American by Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh and Fox News, they don't have to say white. It's just everything they say is normal is typically associated with a stereotypical image of what it means to be a white Christian, right? So, yeah, I mean, right out of the gate here, I think Webbin's
varying
on
degrees.
a weird train.
From some of my reading and some of my just personal experience, I would say that Jews would be on the high end of that scale in terms of group identity on the basis of ethnicity. We are Jewish ethnically, and that is a group, and we belong to each other. We're working towards each other's benefit, those kinds of things. And then
Here's the other thing, like, there is no fucking way in hell that I'm going to unite around white. I don't give a fuck about that. If I was going to unite around like a deeper heritage, it wouldn't be my skin color, because that's not a heritage. I would be like fired up to be Irish, which in many ways I am, because the Irish are badass, like the real Irish, not the fake sellout American ones. And that's, I'm not dissing my Irish brothers. I just know that there's a lot of us who are fake sellouts as well, right? There's many of us who are good and understand truly the history of our heritage. Like, I'm from Poland, right? I'm not directly, but my great grandparents came from Poland, and I, met my great grandfather when I was very young a bunch of times. Don't remember him that well, but my great grandmother was around until I was in my 20s. So, like, I know these people, and I know, like, where they were coming from on things, and to associate themselves with people who made fun of them and, like, even may have not given them a job or a career opportunity because they were Polish or Irish, like, to now sell out to this identity of white, that's some bitch shit. I'm not doing that. Pastor Doobies is a lot of things. A sinner? Certainly. A saint? You know it. A bitch? Never. I'm never going to be a bitch. I'm never going to be a bootlicker. I am in the spirit of Martin Luther. Here before God I stand, right? God can judge me. I'm going to stand on principle, because that's what Pastor Doobies is all about.
I would see somewhere in between there, you'd have blacks and Hispanics and various other peoples, and then I would see Europeans at the far end of the scale. So if Jews are like a 10 in terms of viewing themselves as a group, I would say that the average European is a 0, and doesn't think that way at all. Do you think that that's fair?
Yes, I wrote a book in 2019, came out, and it's called Individualism in the Western Liberal Tradition.
I mean, Europeans are not even a thing, right? America, like... a lot of Protestants came to America, right? And America became predominantly Protestant. We're talking about the aspects of it that were Christian. Catholics were hated on, right? Both sets of my grandparents, like, my families were Catholic too. So that's another reason they fucking hated us here. They were suspicious of us from day one. We were papists. Pastor Doobie's not a papist, but I respect certain popes. I'll talk truthfully about popes. All right, I'm getting sidetracked by the popes and the papacy. It's not really what is at the heart of the matter here, and we'll never get through this if I don't play it.
The West is individualistic, and we don't identify with groups as well, and that has been corroborated, by the way, with Joseph Henrich's book. It's called the weirdest people in the world, because we are the weirdest people in the world. We're the only culture in the world that really emphasizes individualism. And we don't identify with groups very, very well. We don't have, when we see strangers, we don't make invidious attributions about them. We tend to be individualists. And actually, a great example right now is Tucker Carlson. He's got a lot of hot water because he interviewed Nick Fuentes and all that. But when you look at what he writes, and he consistently does this, he say group identities are horrible. Right. That if you have group identities, you're going to have warfare, you're going to have ethnic hostility and all that. So he completely avoids that.
He misses that. Yeah, we saw his interview with Nick, and we appreciate Tucker. I think he does a lot of good, and I think the backlash against him is unmerited. You're allowed to interview whoever you want. If somebody wants to do a more hostile interview and try to pin Nick to the floor, then they can do it. But he's allowed to interview Nick and do what he wants. But one of the portions of that particular interview where I found myself disagreeing with Tucker is that Tucker is like, well, when it comes to, I just don't judge people on a group level, and I think that, like, he's a Christian. We're Christians as well, Wes and I, and we talked about this recently, but there's different categories. Like, Westerners need to be, and Christians for that matter, need to begin to think in different categories. Christians, different theological categories. So if you are a Christian, and that's your conviction, then it is true that on the basis of God's judgment, and specifically God's perfect, just, and eternal judgment, God is going to render that judgment on an individual basis, so that when each person stands before before God on that final day. It's going to be, what have you done with your life? And if you're Christian, then namely that, did you trust in the Lord Jesus? But it's going to be on the basis of their works. And we have ample New Testament texts that talk about that. On that final day, Matthew chapter 7, they'll say, Lord, Lord, but I did this and I did that, and so it does seem to be individually, this judgment. But the idea that as people in a temporal plane, as finite creatures, that we can't make any assessments whatsoever based off of groups is not only is it not the moral brag that people claim it is, but it's actually even illogical. You're basically denying that you do something that everyone it just instinctively does. We all do this, and I'm not even speaking about groups strictly in terms of ethnic divisions, but we do this politically, we do this religiously, we do this ethnically, we do this.
Okay, all right. Wow, I should have stopped that earlier because I hope I can remember everything that I just wanted to say. All right. Okay, groups versus individuality. I agree that his assessment of how most Americans, I don't know, I can't speak for Europeans, I have no fucking idea, but for most Americans that I've encountered and things I've read, studies I've seen, I would agree. Most people don't think of themselves, or they do think of themselves as individuals more than they think of themselves as a community, right? And when it comes to Christianity, he's correct that American Christians tend to view, and most Christians probably, if I'm going to be honest, even though Pastor Doobies does, I partially agree, but the emphasis in American Christianity for sure is on, or American Protestantism, let's put it that way, conservative Protestantism. The emphasis is on personal salvation and relationship with Jesus Christ, where that's not necessarily true throughout the rest of the church. I would argue it's not even true in the Bible, right? Not that an individual won't be judged, but it's not a matter of emphasis in any respect, right? It's not really, but that's sort of an aside, because what he's really getting at here is the most gross part, to be honest, is he's doing like what's the fallacy called? I can't remember what the fallacy is called, but he's seeing what is and saying that is how it ought to be, right? And because he's not wrong about what is in many respects. We all generalize, we all stereotype, we all operate off of like presuppositions many times that we're not even thinking about as we enter a conversation or as we approach a certain subject of study. There's just like, you don't think about everything all the time. You take the new information in, but it's filtered through your previous learning and your previous experiences, right? So yeah, that is how it, like, that's true. But it sounds to me like he's arguing for, so because that is the fact, we should just like not try to improve our knowledge or improve on that further, just accept that we stereotype and be okay with stereotyping people and kind of develop these group identities in more strict terms so that we can separate ourselves. And Americans, although we are individualists, we need to start thinking of ourselves as a group, by which what he means is white people, right? He means white people. He's not, I don't know if he will say that, but this thing here, right? This thing we're watching is he's talking with a guy who is a known anti-Semite who pushes anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, and he's pushing his ideas as a good idea. Like, this is craziness. And this dude, although he has not been interviewed to my knowledge by Tucker Carlson, he, speaks and has ties with, and I believe is part of the same like church denomination sort of thing that they founded, the CREC, as Doug Wilson. And Doug Wilson has been interviewed by the New York Times. and by Tucker Carlson, right? And the next video we're going to watch, I might as well reveal it now. It's not going to be tonight, obviously, but the next time we have a service, we're watching Joel Webben. He interviewed Nick Fuentes himself. So to me, the reason I want to watch that is because I know Nick Fuentes is a Catholic and Joel Webben is a Reformed Baptist. I feel like that will be an interesting conversation because I know so many of the theological distinctions of both camps, and I want to see where they unite because I think that will be insightful. The things that bring them together are going to be frightening, probably, but yeah, that's getting ahead of ourselves. Let's let this guy show his
economically, you know,
right
the way
now.
that somebody is dressed, you know, what car they drive, all these different symbols of status. We do it in terms, I mean, companies do it when it comes to hiring, right? There are entire swaths of fields that I would never be able to get a job in because I didn't go to an Ivy League school. That's a prejudgment. It's a prejudice. And to think that a prejudice, I think that's part of the problem is we as West.
This sucks because that's true. And I've made that argument myself so many times, right? It's a shortcut. Like when you're doing an application, right? It's different. Like I guess it makes a little more sense. I worked for a bank, and in the bank, like I learned a lot about, you know, the jobs that I did, the departments that I was in, and had a lot more knowledge and understanding of the way things work than someone who might have been coming from outside. Now they might have had a master's degree, but I had, 15 years of experience or something like that, and knew a lot of things that have tended over history to take a long time for people to understand and learn. And they'd have to learn all of that on top of learning like their own job, right? You have to understand how things work, and you need to learn the new stuff as well. And so there's a sense in which, like, yeah, I agree with this. There are definitely jobs that people who don't have a college education are more qualified for, or at least as qualified for, as people who do. I think our system is broken. I'm not anti-education, though, and I think that's the difference with me and Joel Webben, is he, like so many other evangelical Christians, are trying to downplay the importance of like an accredited education, right? And by that I mean like traditional schools. Like I don't give a fuck about Ivy League. I just give a fuck about like shit that's based on the scientific method, and like real research and real understanding. And I worry that what these guys do is they're trying to, in a way, I mean, really, like, and I'll be honest, for myself, the reason that I was learning, and I have learned, and I continue to learn, so in a way it's not true, but in another way it's like it's a soothing argument for someone who doesn't have the education, right? It can be true and soothing, or it can be just soothing, right? And it could just be something that you're like, I feel, sorry, I'm stuttering. I feel that he is trying to schmooze people with this. But let's keep going, because I'm
truncated that word prejudice to where it is inherently and exclusively immoral. But I think that a prejudice is not inherently immoral. You can have prejudice on immoral bases, but you can also have prejudice that is it's simply rational and logical, and there's no real morality attached to it one way or the other. What do you think that's fair?
Yes, I do, and I think it's a very nice analysis, especially from a religious perspective. Jews are the opposite. They're extremely collectivist.
Again, right? Like he's not wrong. It's not about whether he's right or wrong, though. It's about what he's trying to do with that statement. He's trying to normalize stereotyping, right? There's a reason why stereotyping happens, but if you kind of stop there, then you're turning off your brain and becoming a robot, because obviously we are individuals. And there's always a dialectic interplay between like who we are as a singular person and who we are within the, you know, environment that we exist in. And I think it's worth trying to understand individuals. I think as a species, we get smarter by doing that. That is Pastor Doobie's view. So I am diametrically opposed to this nonsense where you say, no, like actually, like, yeah, everyone just basically stereotypes. And so we should just do it because it's good. As if it's science.
I mean,
That's
you see
crazy.
this now in Israel, you know, where the West Bank settlers, the slaughter that they've engaged in Gaza, women and children, everybody, you know, it's this, you know, and I just wrote a thing on Mark Levin. And Mark Levin, he really wants all the people in Gaza to be murdered.
Yeah, he's bloodthirsty.
He is bloodthirsty. And you know, it was just him, that's one thing, but he reflects the attitudes, I think, of the Israeli government.
See, like, this is gross too, because as you know, Pastor Doobies is staunchly pro-Palestinian, and I am anti-Zionist to the core, and I think that I believe in a one-state solution. I don't fuck around, right? I'm not in favor of religious ethno-states at all, but let's not beat around the bush here. These guys, right, they'll point to the fact that Netanyahu and the leaders of Israel and some people in America, well, they're not even saying the people in America, even though it is people in America too, and we're actually the driving force of it all. It's not the Jews, right? But that's what these guys want to make you think. They're bloodthirsty. They want to wipe all these people out. But the truth of the matter is they don't care about Palestinians either. They don't. They hate Arabs and Muslims just as much, right? And they think that the Christians who are there are heretics. So like they'll use them as sort of like, oh, they're being persecuted. But if you get down into the nitty gritty of their theology and who they think is in and who they think is outside of the faith or the communion of the saints, the Palestinian Christians would not be included in their vision at all. So it's all bullshit, top to bottom, and don't be fooled by the fact that because these guys are in a sense on the right side of the conflict in Israel and in Palestine, that they're interested in justice or peace. These are the bloodthirsty ones. These ones. And they also want a religious ethno-state, just a Christian one. They're envious of what Israel has.
Government and what you know, they're just a right wing within Israel, and they are dominant. And the American Jewish community is supporting them, AIPAC and all. They are, you know. So this is scary. And you know, Tucker's way of analyzing this is a losing strategy. I mean,
Yes.
we live in a world of groups, and more so than ever. And you know, blacks, Latinos, Jews, everybody comes into this country, and they're encouraged to adopt it.
Also, quickly, like, people always group themselves together. Like, this is the sense in which, you know, the one nugget of truth in what they're saying or fact in what they're saying is, yeah, that is how the mind works, but it doesn't have to group people in terms of race and religion. You know, there are many ways that you can group different things together. You can group them together by color or by shape or by height or width. You can group them together by taste, by smell, by intellect, by the region you were born. Like, you can group people in infinite ways. That's just how language works, you know? But you're again suggesting, like, you're taking these things that are true and then saying, oh, so we should just be racists.
And I think religious is some kind of identity.
The silver is mine and the gold is mine, declares the Lord
Oh,
of
good,
hosts.
we get their
Yet
ads.
your retirement dollars keep
Buy silver from this scam
shrinking daily
that I have
as Washington
going on,
prints
and gold
money
too.
out of thin air. Genesis Gold Group aligns financial guidance with godly principles
oldest
when
trick in
others
the book,
serve only
Alex
profit.
Jones.
Their faith-centered
Yeah,
approach
that's how
to
Alex
gold
Jones got
IRAs
big.
stands apart
That, and then
in
he
an
went to
industry
supplements,
that has forgotten what
dick
true stewardship
supplements.
actually means. Why gamble your family's future on Wall Street's paper promises?
I want to like rip these dudes too. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, maybe I should just mute while he's doing the ad until he goes back anyway, because I don't care. But look at this man. Like, can you call him a man, really? Look at him. Look at this guy. Is this what you want your child to grow up to be? I know these guys are really concerned about, you know, dads and parenting and manliness and masculinity and, you know, taking care of your kids, but you know, I'm not saying those things are bad. Like, they're good, right? But just because those things are good doesn't mean you want this fucking ghoul running like the show. Like, this guy, in a way, fits that group of man. Like, I'm assuming he has allegedly a set of balls and a cock. I don't know that for sure, but I mean, I'm just gonna give him the benefit of the doubt on that one. But like, in many other respects, like, he doesn't fit what it means to be a man. He just doesn't, right? He's scared. Like, he's one of those guys that likes to talk about how important it is that he has a gun because he has these wild fantasies about being a hero in some kind of situation. And he's so deluded and narcissistic that he doesn't understand that he's just, you know, a fraud. And he wouldn't actually do anything. And if he did, it would be like a school shooting. Like, that's the kind of guy we're dealing with here. You don't want this guy, even if you agree that, you know, it's important that we get fathers back in people's lives, and, you know, we got to take care of all this, and like, it's not bad to be a boy, you know, or a man, as long as you're a moral man. Like, if you agree with all that, that's great. Pastor Doobies agrees with all of that stuff too, right? I do. But you can do all that without being like this man, because this man is a poor excuse for a human being. And the truth of the matter is that if you're the kind of person that thinks that women shouldn't be allowed to vote, and you think that you need to have, you're so paranoid about the power of women that you need the entire force of the American government to come and shut them down. Like, you're just a scared person. You're a scared person. It's weird, dude. It's weird. Oh, I gotta unmute it. It might still be
And
another
for your
ad,
children's
though.
children.
It is
We are not
another
called to be wise as doves. Therefore, simpleton planning simply won't cut it. Joe Garrissey helps families develop and implement a
drink
long-term
behind me.
culture of excellent financial management. He starts with your goals, your tithing plan, your retirement, and the legacy that you want to build for your generations. And then he works backwards to build a real actionable plan
Need
to
that
get your
in a minute.
family on track. Now, many of my personal friends have benefited from the financial wisdom of Joe Garrissey that he shared for their specific
I don't know who the
situations.
fuck this
Do you want to
person
work
is.
with
I'm
someone who
sorry.
strives
See, this
for
is such a
alpha
waste.
with your
This
investing?
is where I should have
Hates
been
cash.
smarter
What
and
powers our modern
fast-forwarded
world?
more.
Fighter jets, clean
Wow.
energy, even the phone that's in your hand.
Bro.
We rarely stop to ask the question,
Is that still
what
an ad
powers
too?
are power?
No.
See, it all is to secure supply
When does
chain
this dude stop
Jews
doing ads?
who gets
Oh,
along the way that
first
seems
thing
like
I have him
in
say.
Canada. With the race to secure
At least we don't get any ads during this motherfucker shit, because no one's gonna put ads
Things like
on this psychotic
one of the ways that we got
shit.
off the rails in the West is, for one, I think we took for granted that for a fairly decent portion of time, we were largely a homogenous society. You know, I mean, it was 90% white, European. And I understand that, like, you know, there were some distinctions, like we weren't very excited about the Irish, and then we weren't very excited about the Italians, you know, and like, so there were, you know, different pockets along the way that came with growing pains and frustrations and
fuck is
tensions.
this
And some of
guy?
those were ethnic, some of those were actually religious. It wasn't just Italians, you know, it was Catholics, you know, versus Protestants. And so, and because the Catholics were kind of held at arm's length, you know, initially, some of them turned to crime,
No.
and you have the mob syndicate.
Initially, bro, let me go back. One of my teachers, a man by the name of Dave Hunt, one of the most intense biblical dudes that has ever influenced me. Dave Hunt was very, very firm about this. Very firm.
Society, you know, I mean, it was 90% white European. And I understand that, like, you know, there were some distinctions, like we weren't very excited about the Irish, and then we weren't very excited about the Italians, you know, and like, so there were, you know, different pockets along the way that came with growing pains and frustrations and tensions. And some of those were ethnic, some of those were actually religious. It wasn't just Italians, you know, it was Catholics.
Oh, yeah. This dude used to debate Catholics all the time. He'd be like, you guys aren't fucking Christians, man. Like, you're just not. And he makes many good points. Like, did you fucking forget how many people were killed over these differences? Like, it meant a lot to the people that fucking died. I can look back on it now and be like, disagreeing over the doctrine of justification by faith alone is some dumb fucking shit. But back then, them motherfuckers died. So to just kind of wash it away when you remain in that part of the tradition, and it is weird to me. Especially if you're doing it to be like violent again. Like, we shouldn't be violent towards each other. We should team up and be violent against everybody else.
You know, versus Protestants. And so, and because the Catholics were kind of held at arm's length, you know, initially, some of them turned to crime, and you have the mob syndicates, you know, in New York and these kinds of things, in a similar way that historically Jews who were held at arm's length for various reasons. There were reasons, you can agree or disagree with them, but it wasn't arbitrary. There were reasons. And so then they went to money lending, right? If you can't have land and work the land, then you go to, you know, something else. You're splitting the penny a million times and, you know, making your living off of interest and usury and all those kinds of things. But my point is that largely homogenous, yes, Italians, yes, Germans, you know, yes, Englishmen, but largely homogenous in terms of European descent in Western countries, including America, for a very long time, in which you have the luxury. And I think it was taken for granted. We didn't quite recognize why we had that. But you have the luxury in a homogenous society to think more individualistically, to think on the basis of this person, that person, because your country, your nation, your society is one group. So I think that's, when I think of causes for what you're espousing, I would, you know, name that as one of the causes. And the second cause, and this bothers me because I'm a Christian. And in fact, I don't know if you're aware of this, but I actually am a pastor. And so it bothers me, but I want to own the impetus, because I want to lead the way for Christians to repent. You would think, you know, that's kind of a Christian principle. But I think that Christians are actually the distinct Christian faith of the West is one of the reasons that we've gotten into this problem, because I think it was a category error. So I don't think that the Bible intrinsically or inherently forces you to think this way, but I think misinterpreted, it does. I think that Christians conflated, if I was kind of what I said earlier, but to put it in a nutshell, Christians conflated the perfect eternal judgment of God, which I do believe is individual, with temporal, societal, national judgments from humans. So we conflated the eternal and final judgment of God with the temporal judgments of people. And that is a massive category error. And so in the spirit.
Listen, I don't want to get distracted. What's up? Hard Debate T. What's up? Twitch watching as well. What am I doing right now? I am hunting for heretics. Joel Webbin, big scumbag. So we're watching him. At the same time as I'm watching him, I'm trying to find out some information on his background. You know, in a simple Google search, interestingly enough, is not showing me much. I'm having to do a little bit of a deep dive here. Is there any information, like, where did this dude go to school? Where did he get educated? I don't know how to find out about him. He doesn't have a wiki. Shit. I don't want to miss what he's saying, but I want to know where I want to know, because a lot of times these guys are, you know, they have zero credentials. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes, you know, they have an education, but they're not educated in the field that they claim to be an expert in. And I'm finding it interesting. Like, not even on his ministry's webpage, there's a very short explanation of who he is. And it's You know, so now I'm looking on Amazon over here as well to try to see if he like sometimes they have an about the author. I'm not even seeing that on Amazon about him. That makes me suspicious. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to draw any full conclusions from this, but it is something I'm going to need to look at. Oh, wait, hold on. Let's see. No, that just took me to a bunch of his other books. Or something, yeah. Does he have other books? Yeah. I'll try to go to one more of his books. I'm not spending all damn night looking for this guy who's apparently hiding his identity. Like, where'd you learn, bro? Where are you from, bro? Where's your grandma stay? Where's your grandma stay?
Of Christianity, when not thinking in categories and not exercising a lot of discernment in the spirit of trying to be Christian, or what we thought was Christian, right? Well, like what's, if you were to, think of one of the core tenets of Christianity is it will be like Jesus, and Jesus being God, like, be like God. Okay, well, how does God judge? Well, God judges, he judges perfectly, he judges eternally, but there's another aspect of that. God is omniscient. Right? God knows everything. The reason that we make prejudgments, it's not because God is morally perfect and we're fallible. The reason why we make prejudgments, and that's the only category of views, we're like, God does.
This is an aside, and I don't want to get distracted, but Pastor Doobies, I don't believe in that shit. I believe in an open future, a progressive God, a God who doesn't know the future, a God who is, yes, sovereign, a God who can act in history, certainly, but a God who acts in weakness, in quietness, in secret, like a thief in the night, you might say. And this spirit doesn't operate in the way that this man is trying to say. Okay?
To do prejudgments. And we do, because he doesn't make prejudgments because he's moral, perfectly moral, and we do because we're immoral. And so then we make prejudice inherently immoral. But there's another category. Maybe God doesn't make prejudgments because, not because of morality, but because of omniscience, knowledge. God knows everything. And we're finite. So maybe it's less about our fallenness where prejudice steps in, and more about our finitude, the fact that we don't know everything. So when I'm meeting someone for the very first time, it's not the immoral impetus of arrogance or hostility. It's actually more the fact that I have nothing to go off of because I'm finite, because I'm not omniscient. And so all I have is those things which are initial and witnessable and visible and apparent, their dress, their ethnicity, their accent, their speech, those kinds of, or if it's on social media, their political affiliation, are they Republican or Democrat? And so I think we got off the rails, and sadly, I think, one, we took for granted a homogenous society. Two, we tried to live up to our Christian expectations, but we committed a category error and conflated God's perfect, eternal, omniscient judgment as though that was the only standard for any element of judgment from finite creatures in a temporal plane. That's part of how I would account for this category error.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't want to let these guys just ramble on and not say anything, but I am trying to hear what's going on. Because as I've said many times over here, there are many things that he is saying that are correct, but the emphasis so far seems to me to be on just trying to normalize stereotypes and saying like these groups are good and we should not close off those boundaries or try to expand them or have even conversation between different groups. It's a attempt to take something that is certainly true, but then to say because it is, that's how it ought to be. And we'll get into why that would be bad if you don't know already.
I was raised Catholic, and I mentioned Joseph Heinrich's book called The Weirdest People in the World. Weird because we are so unique. But he attributes the Catholic Church as being the major force in producing individualism and making the West what it is. I don't go that far, but I do think that the Catholic Church had a huge role in Western history, and of course now Protestantism. But the point is that we have to understand the role of Christianity. And when you talk about homogeneous society, yes, there were definitely conflicts in American history between Irish and so on. But the fact is, we developed a homogeneous society, and people, there was 90% European. And
no, again, like you're not gonna use me. You're not gonna use me and my fucking people for your political ends. I don't give a fuck about your political ends. I'm Irish, bitch. I'm not gonna get used by you. I'm going for the future I want. Fuck you and your fucking story. I don't give a fuck, dude. Yeah, it don't matter. Pastor Rolling Doobies ain't no fucking fool.
It was a very cohesive society. It was became the most powerful society in the world. And
thank you.
Let's face it, it was an enormous success. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that the Jews, I have a chapter on Jews and immigration policy. Jews did not like the homogeneity of the West. And especially after the 1930s, when they saw what happened in Germany, where you had a homogeneous Christian society rise up against the Jews. And, they saw white Christians basically as proto-Nazis. And so they felt that they would be much safer in a society with a lot of different ethnic groups. And so they very intensely lobbied for multi-ethnic, multicultural immigration. Right. And that's what we have.
That makes a lot of sense.
Still very much
yeah.
That
makes no fucking sense. It didn't. What sense did that make? I'm confused about the argument. That I all of a sudden he was saying, yeah, the Jews just wanted it to be multi-ethnic, and now it's multi-ethnic, so obviously the Jews got what they wanted. It's like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. What the fuck are you talking about that makes sense? It's ridiculous. The sad part is that these are the intellectuals of the Christian right.
Seems like they play kind of both sides of the field. They Jews certainly have more long-standing ties with the political left in the American context. But as you said, more recent development in the past decades with neocons on the right. But it does seem that there's still a concert effect working in tandem that, I feel like Jewish influence on the political right wages wars that create refugees, and Jewish influence on the political left open doors, thinking of Toledo, and welcome them into Western countries. And so even though they may sharply politically disagree with one another, a Ben Shapiro with, I don't know, whatever, a Chuck Schumer, that the effect still seems, to work out. You were going to say something, Wes.
I was going to say, from a group kind of evolutionary analysis, a minority act.
No, it's not a group thing, bro. That's like the American dominant scene. Those you picked two establishment members of the right wing, important figures in American politics. Two establishment figures, and because they're Jewish, you're insinuating that the entire movement is Jewish. Like somehow Ben Shapiro and Chuck Schumer are the ones behind the scenes pulling all of the strings on what happens. No. As far as neocons go and shit. No, bro. Most of the neocons are not Jewish. There are Jewish ones. Who cares? This is the dumb shit that we have to listen to here. But we have to listen to it because people need to know. Even if your average evangelical doesn't know who this dude is, there's a chance your online kid knows. And if your online kid doesn't know, your pastor probably knows. And it's influencing you whether you like it or not. So unfortunately, we have to dig in.
In that way, it makes a lot of sense. So if you're a minority in a given country, as the Jews were in Europe, and honestly, you're not liked very much. There's reasons that Europeans hate the Jews. There's reasons Jews hate the Europeans. So you're a minority in a country, multiple countries. You're not liked.
No. This is fucking stupid. That's one of those things where it's again, the whole show here, they've been trying to normalize these stereotypes. And you get here to this point, and this guy now is just sort of assuming it in the conversation. Oh, yeah, Jews hate Europeans for valid reasons, and Europeans hate Jews for valid reasons. I think this is the next kind of step in the evolution, right? Oh, it's legit. They both hate people for legit reasons, right? But no, like you're again, nobody's a monolith. Europeans are not a monolith, right? I'm a European. I think you guys suck and are. There's things I won't say because I would, but I would almost guarantee that you guys are like every other evangelical pastor that basically exists in the United States. Let's just put it that way. And that's almost a crime in and of itself these days. So yeah, I mean, like, I gotta move on.
Very much.
But I
It
gotta
would make a lot of
keep
sense
going.
that if possible, so
It's
your
already
high
been an hour
IQ, your
and
high achievement, your
We're
in-group
actually making
preference,
good
that you would
progress
leverage
here.
those things to say,
Compared to
how
last
can I make this country the most welcoming, the most accepting, the most mobile? How can I be most mobile in the society so I can make life good for me, especially coming from the 20th century? 20th century was not great. Your pogroms, your concentration camps, all these different things happened. So it of course makes sense. The 1950s, the 1960s, and the 70s. Neoconservatism on the right, immigration policy. I believe it was one of the two, Hart Celler, the senator and the representative that sponsored the immigration bill. One of them a Jewish, I believe it was Emanuel Hart. It would make sense that both sides, no matter where you place them, they would say, how can we make this country most welcoming? And your title of your book, The Culture of Critique, they were very critical of the WASP, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, because the 40s and the 50s and 60s, a lot of institutions were gatekept from Jews. You recount a story of a young Jewish scholar just bristling that there were men's clubs in Columbia and other Ivy League institutions they had no access to. And so they set to work, and it didn't take 5 years or 10 years. It took multiple generations, but that critique of that culture and taking the sledgehammer to its foundation, sledgehammer to immigration policy, that's the thesis of your book. That's what they did. And it largely created the situation we have right now, where by and large, Europeans, who once were the majority in America, very soon will no longer be.
Yeah, they actually lost the battle in 1924. The 1924 immigration law severely restricted immigration and emphasized Western Europe. Jews took that very personally as an insult, and they still have that grudge against white America, by the way, that they were kept out. Because at the time, the Jews, they came in, were very Orthodox. They were very Orthodox or very much on the left. Radicals. This is at a time right after the Soviet Union was established.
All right.
People were very afraid of it.
See, this is a subtlety that a lot of people don't get, right? This is a subtlety. Associating the Jews with the left is exactly what the Nazis did. The biggest enemies of the Nazis were the socialists, the communists, right? And the Jews. And these were basically conflated categories. They looked at socialism and communism as a Jewish ideology. And yeah, that was one of the ways that they made excuses to go after the Jews. They demonized the ideology and associated it with a group that they have already fomented a bunch of hate towards and went after them. So this conflation here and acting like, I mean, Marx was a Jew, right? That's why those pictures are there, right? And it's so crazy because they're trying to invent it, like, or invent like a pathway in people's minds. That's not the best language. They're trying to create a pathway in people's minds where it's like, basically all these people are the same because they want you to think that all Jewish people are the same and that they're running the planet. And they also want you to associate it with left-wing stuff because left-wingers are not down with anti-Semitism. So they're equal enemies. So I hear it. I mean, I don't know. A lot of people might hear, I don't know. It's hard to say, right? Because I wouldn't have considered myself when I was a far-right conservative Christian to be a Nazi or a fascist. Like, I wouldn't have thought about myself that way. And I certainly wasn't on, like, the level of these people where they're at right now, as radical as they are. Yeah, I don't know. Like, sorry, I got distracted. Hold on. I wish I knew how to use my shit. Just be yourself. Thank you. Appreciate you. I didn't see that comment. Yeah. I'll come back.
happening.
I'll come
There's some
back.
leaking out of
Doesn't
the
matter. Thank
horrifying events.
I
in the Soviet
appreciate
Union.
you in the chat.
And
Harry
Americans
Dev
did not
T,
want
is that what it
this.
says?
And so they restricted immigration. But so 40 years later, they succeeded. And there was a constant effort that entire time, establishing, organizations, establishing panels of experts, getting John F. Kennedy to write a book. He didn't actually write it, he put his name on it. Same with Hubert Humphrey. And so it was a full court press on immigration. And there was a real fear, especially after World War II, about what could happen in a homogeneous white Christian society. And so here we are.
It wasn't after World War II. it was definitely leading up to it.
What do you
2025 sort of reaping the results of that.
Right. Hey, friends, Grey Toad Tallow is a family business making
All right,
skincare the way that it
we're-
should be. Simple.
We're skipping this. We learned our lesson last time. I don't need the ads here. It's enough having to listen to these guys.
What would be your personal thoughts as someone who has studied this subject matter for quite some time and looking at the lay of the land and where we are today? Do you have any hope?
Interesting. Yo, Harry Dev T, I don't know. I missed like one of your comments in here and I just saw it. I agree that there's no need to be a Christian. I don't think one must be a Christian. In fact, I'm an atheist. But I've recently come to the realization that it would be wrong and naive of me to give up the title Christian as someone who has been so intertwined with that world to people who suck. I am as much of a Christian as Joel Webbin is. He thinks I'm a heretic. Well, I think he's a heretic. And I'm going to excommunicate his ass week after week after week. But I do agree with you. No need to be a Christian. It's about being loving, being a good person, trying to be at least. That's all we got.
Do you feel like it's over? Do you like what do you predict or what do you suspect the coming years might look like?
Well, we have to keep fighting, and we can't give up. But I do fear what would happen to a white minority population if they really lost power. You see what happened in the Soviet Union when the Russians lost power. You see what happened in Gaza when Jews controlled it completely, and they just wiped people out. So it's a very dangerous situation that we are in. And certainly white people will have power even when they become a minority, but they will have dwindling power. And you're still going to have this Jewish
again,
elite.
like this is just like white replacement theory. The guy's just he's rehashing all the old Nazi lines. And so what are we doing here? Unfortunately, and I'll like for me too, I say this all the time. I spent so much of my life and still am in many respects a huge dumbass. Right? I have to keep like reading shit and watching things to learn in order to kind of understand what's going on today. You know, I need to understand a little bit of history. That's nice. Maybe work my brain with some math or some philosophy. That's all good. Like just like, you know, trying to become a better critical thinker. And there was times most of my life where I wouldn't have realized that what this dude's saying is exactly the same shit as what the Nazis said. And I would have denied it. I would have said, just like all these other conservative evangelicals that we watch week to week and the people that I know in my personal life, like it's all they know. It's what they learn this stuff, but it's not in the context of like the sort of anti-Semitism that is this blatant in this video. So it just kind of like seeps in, and it's really, I don't know, it's really gross.
The thing is, especially in the third edition, I emphasize in the introduction, which is like 100 pages. Excuse me, I get a problem here. That the real story here is the rise of a new elite. If you go back to the beginning of the 20th century, you have this WASP elite centered in the Ivy League universities, Wall Street, the State Department.
I'll talk to you. All right, I have a slightly different view. I mean, I think religion's a little bit more neutral. I think it can be used for good or bad. My example would be Martin Luther King Jr. I think Martin Luther King Jr. was someone who's a sincere Christian and man of faith, and he lived out his version of that in a way that was productive and good, right? I also understand where your frustration, or like the way that you think about it, comes from, because obviously so many evils have been sprung out of religious arguments, disagreements, whatever you want to call it. Many wars, many deaths, all of that too. But on the other hand, I guess I would say that, you know, past societies, I think, tended to be more cultic. Like, I guess, like, more religious in the sense that we talk about religion, right? Like going to church, like the Catholic Church, or going to a mosque, or to any other kind of like religious temple or whatever you go to, right? But yeah, I don't know. I just feel I had a point there, but I lost it. I think that they're not necessarily bad, but they've been used. Oh yeah, that's what it was. Back in the past, like, I think more people tended to be that way. Atheist or agnosticism, or a more like finding out your own path to spirituality, there's more of that in today's society, as far as I know, than the past. Hinduism, yeah, I mean, I feel kind of with me, like, if people find value in Hinduism, then go at it. Like, that's fine, as long as in the end it leads you to be, you know, I hate to use the word productive member of society, because productive isn't the right word, but like if it helps you like deal with life, if it brings blessing to you, if it makes you happy, if it makes your relationships better, if it does all that stuff, I think it's good. Okay, yeah, I mean, like, you know what? See, that's fine to me. I don't need to think of it, I guess, in terms of like a religion like Hinduism or something. Yeah, that's fine too. Right, agree. It's not a problem for me. I think, whether it's Hinduism or not, that I get to make my own meaning out of what I'm handed, I guess. That's the way I look at it. I don't believe in like a full libertarian freedom where I can make anything out of life, but, you know, I'm handed a life. I'm handed circumstances against my will, and I can do whatever I want with that life and try to create whatever meaning out of it, I guess. That's my thought. What I don't like about religion is exactly, unfortunately, what I need to cover on this show. That's what I'm watching after, is the people that probably, you know, when you don't like an Abrahamic religion, there are obviously certain people that want to use religion for control, for violence, and things like that. And, you know, as I think that can probably happen in every religion, I just don't think that it's a necessity. So since I was born into a Christian family, it's my heritage. Even though I'm an atheist, I want to lay claim to the name Christian and look within my group and say, you're wrong, and pick out the bullshit and be critical of them. Because I don't know shit about Hinduism. I'm honest. I really don't. I don't know anything about Hinduism. I know very little about Islam. I know some things about Judaism because there's overlap with Christianity. I know more than just what Christians say about Judaism. Not that I'm an expert or anything like that, but it's kind of like my lane. It's actually why I do this show, is because I spent so much time trying to learn about theology, and I put so much work into believing what, you know, in the religion. And now that I've changed, it's like, wow, what a shame it would be to waste all of that time and that insight. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, old is fine. Old doesn't really matter to me that much, though. you know? Like, it's cool, you know, like historical, archaeological type sense, but it doesn't make it more true to me. I don't know how you feel about that, but it doesn't make it more true to me because it's old. We can keep talking, but I'm going to get back to this vid too.
Politics, and that is what has been eclipsed. So a gradual rise of the Jews, beginning in the 1920s.
If we're going to talk, give me a follow.
There's a lot of anti-Semitism in the 1920s. Henry Ford, very famously, wrote, they were born independent. And later, in the 1930s, you had Father Charles Coughlin, and he was a Catholic priest, had a huge radio audience, and he was railing against the Jews and the bankers and all that. And but after World War II, anti-Semitism just declined to nothing. And you saw the rise of the Jews in universities, even more so in the media. Jews have been in the media since the 1920s, 1910s, because the New York Times was owned by Jews. And very specifically, it was funded by Jacob Shepard, one of these very wealthy Jews, and they got a Jewish editor and owner there. And the whole point was to help the Jews. And then, NBC was Jewish, CBS was Jewish.
Bro, this is just crazy talk. There isn't even that many Jews. Like, it's just crazy talk. It's like you could do the same shit with Irish people, right? You could do the same shit. The Irish actually control the world, bro. The Irish actually control shit. Why? Because there's an Irish dude. There's an Irish dude that works at every major corporation in the United States, and they're high up. It's just, this is silly.
And so when I grew up, you had three networks: ABC, CBS, NBC. They were all owned by Jews. And so huge position in the media. And that's important because media has influence. We're seeing less influence now, the legacy media.
Now, to be clear, I do want to say this. I don't respect any of this at all. But the part here that is also true is that there is certainly... American foreign policy has huge interests in the nation of Israel, and we feel like we need it, and we prop it up. And our media certainly is biased in favor of Israel and lies on behalf of Israel and tries to promote Zionism amongst the public. You also have huge Zionist movements on the Christian right specifically, whole theologies that are built around Zionist supremacy in the Middle East. So that shit, that's real. And certainly Jewish people who work, or maybe who owned, I don't know exactly who he's talking about, to be fair, who might have owned a media company, or the media companies might have also been Zionist. But the thing isn't that the Jews control the world. It's that the most powerful, wealthiest country that has ever existed on the planet uses Israel to dominate the region. That's what it is. It's not about Judaism. It's not about their genes. It's not about who they are as a group. It's about a plot of land that is strategically important for American capital and American imperialism.
But it certainly has influence. And I'm very concerned about Larry Ellison, who's an extremely wealthy owner of Oracle, more or less.
Right, like, this is the thing that makes it tough, right? And this is why when you hear even a Nick Fuentes, like, they're in many cases on the right side of the issue, like being against the genocide in Gaza. Like, I want it to end, so it needs to fucking end. Like, everything that's going on there needs to be a real solution to what's going on in Israel, and it needs to be, everybody living together under one state with, in a democracy. That would be the move. Really, right? But I forget what I was going to say. It's okay.
And he
The beer is starting to
has
hit,
bought up CBS, and more importantly,
and
he
the
bought up
back is
TikTok.
starting to hurt.
Correct.
And he installed
And
Barry
they're gonna
Weiss
keep
as head of CBS. Now, Barry Weiss, if you know her, she is a fanatic Zionist. Okay, you're not going to see any criticism of Israel on CBS.
No. I mean, like, see, like, these things are not, that's what it was. These things are not wrong, but you do have to understand that there are certain people, like the left, right? They're associating the left, socialism and things with Jewish people, and so therefore they're on the evil side. If these guys are making a list of and checking it twice, the naughty side is going to have Jews and socialists, right? So that's what they are mainly concerned about. Those are the people that they want to wipe out. So it's not like these guys are just, about love and peace, and they're really concerned about something in particular, like, oh wow, like these people are really like I don't know. I'm stumbling over my words now. There's a belief system here. It's a very specific belief system, and hating Jewish people, I think, is a means to an end. I'm not even sure, based on things I've read, whether Hitler really gave a fuck about the Jews more than they were a tool for power for him. He could, and that's the way he treated Jewish people. So I don't think that would be that surprising.
And they are going to be gung-ho for any war that might benefit Israel. So the media is still important, and it's still largely under Jewish ownership.
I gotta pee.
Certainly, there's
I'm gonna
been some
keep
good
listening to
things
this.
that have happened, like Elon Musk taking over
Going
Twitter
to take a leak
and
as
installing a much
affirming
more
what's
free
being
speech
said.
regime, and that's all to the good. I'm so sorry. But anyway, the point is that there's a rise of the Jews after World War II, especially in the 1960s. I lived through it at the University of Wisconsin. I was a student there. The Jews were totally involved. Jewish students who were really called red diaper babies because their parents were communists in the 1930s. And their children in the 1960s became the sort of cutting edge of the radical movement of the 1960s. So I have a chapter on that. But it's, I lived through it, as I said. It was very striking. I had Jewish roommates. I went to these protests. But it never felt quite right with me. And then afterwards, I gradually moved to more conservative positions. I voted for Gerald Ford, for example. And anyway, that's sort of my story.
Yeah.
Dr. McDonald, I'll give you a second here and lay the premise because I want to hear from you on Bolshevism, specifically 1917, the Bolshevik Party. With Russia, you had the collapse of basically the last of the Christian emperors. And so discontent among the peasants led to provisional government. I think it lasted just for a short number of years. Then you had different groups vying for power, the Mensheviks, the Bolsheviks, and ultimately, as we know from history, the Bolsheviks were successful in October of 1917. Now, the history of the Bolsheviks is not as simple as to simply say they were all Jews. There's leadership, there's foot soldiers, there's revolutionaries, there's criminals. But what's fascinating, and I think applicable to our time, the Bolsheviks were mostly comprised of non-Russians. So you go into Jewish involvement in the book. We don't have time to get into all of that here, specifically in leadership. What's also fascinating is as you have a natural Russian aristocracy replaced and an uprising of the people they're furious, they're mad, they want regime change. The party that succeeds is not a party homegrown of the people of Russia, that with a political solution that makes sense for a Russian people. It's outsiders. It's people not native to the land, those that have come in and said, we'd like a piece of this and we'd like some of that. We think there's ways that this could be improved here. And Jews largely.
All right. I don't want to talk out of my ass here. I don't. All right. We're going to find something. I'm looking. All right, hold on. That's nothing. Okay. Okay. I just wanted to make sure here. So, I figured it was. But this is fucking bullshit. All right? This idea that the Russian Revolution was fomented by outsiders, by foreigners, right? And he's trying to like play this game where, oh, I'm being honest. We can't say they were all Jews, but wink, wink, a lot of Jews and just foreigners generally, which works on the right in these days. They came in there and brought a foreign ideology and overthrew the good Christian government of Russia. So let's put this in different terms. What we're talking about is Tsarist Russia. It was like a dictatorship, a monarchy of sorts, right? To put it in the simplest terms. And the Bolshevik Revolution was a democratic revolution. Regardless of how it panned out, whatever anyone wants to say about that, it was very clearly democratic. It was very clearly good for the country. And the other thing that's interesting about this conspiracy that this dude is starting to push here is that it is really sort of the nature, as far as I understand, of fascism to try to return to like an artificial past, a past that never really existed, right? Once democracy comes onto the modern stage, once the scientific revolution happens, it throws many conservative ideas into, confusion and into an absolute spiral. So there's a sense in which they want to return to this idyllic past, right? Because it's not exactly the same. This new moment, whether it's the scientific revolution or whether it's the democratic movements and revolution of the Enlightenment era, it changes things so much that any attempt to return to the past is also incorporating this new moment that people just weren't fucking thinking about. Right, prior to the event happening. So it's never like pure. It's never actually, you can never actually return to this original moment of purity, because it's utopian, it's fake, right? It's an image. It's like, oh, like I remember back in the 1950s when America was awesome, right? Depending on who you were. So that's another subtlety that I probably wouldn't have realized when I was a kid, is like this dude is trying to present that exact same narrative. Like, oh, there was this Garden of Eden of Christendom in Russia, and then the Jews came and fucked it up. And then you had the USSR, who became the biggest enemy of Nazi Germany, right? The nation who defeated Nazi Germany in World War II, their greatest enemies. Yeah, so I don't know. I guess if you don't know that stuff, maybe this could be persuasive.
Involved in the leadership of it, coming in and saying, this seems like a great moment. This seems like a great opportunity. The people.
This is also what they're trying to argue in America. That's maybe the most important part, right? This whole idea of white replacement, great replacement theory, recycled Nazi bullshit is that the Democrats, the left, are trying to bring in people from other countries that don't share the white Christian values of America, and they want to overwhelm the democratic system and change things to be like, so that white Christians don't get to dominate society, right? That's the narrative that he's painting. It's quite literally the exact parallel to what the Nazis said. Invaders, they want to change society. It's what he's saying right now about Russian society as well. It's always what fascists say, except for I think Mussolini's a little bit of a different case, but the Nazis and all their stories, that's what America cares about, I guess.
Want this, and a relatively
They wanna
small
use
party
those.
in Russia brought about the system that, again, was established for till 1989, close to 80 years, and untold bloodshed in the millions. But again, don't miss the point. Jews, yes, but also leading, you could say, a multinational, multi-ethnic coalition that was critical of the existing stock, the existing culture, the existing people that were there from the outside, commandeering, taking it over, and then going on to commit probably the worst crimes as far as crimes against a given people that I would say just about we've ever seen in the modern world. And I don't see that as a one-off. That type of resentment, that type of hatred, that type of just anger towards the ruling class. And here's what they did to you, and here's what they've taken from you. We saw some of that just in 2020 with Black Lives Matter. We're going to burn down cities. We're going to shoot cops in the head because they've done this to.
No cops got shot in the head. Shut the fuck up. Like, see, this is this it. It seemed really reasoned, but now they're trying to paint their enemy as extraordinarily violent and saying, oh, the people that rule over you are just so evil. This is like, I'll tell you that this is an aside. I sent my mom a video because my mom, bless her heart, she wants me to be saved, and we don't exactly believe the same things, but Pastor Doobies is quite all right with Jesus. Me and Jesus, we drink beers at least every Thursday, and we try to get together more than that if we can, right? So, but she, just like me, she was a huge influence on me. It says I have a message. Who left me a message? I don't know how to use this on TikTok. Somebody supposedly left a message, and I don't know how to look at it. God damn it. All right. I don't know how that works. Fuck. And then I forgot what I was saying, too. Oh, we got someone else. Hey, man, how was my day? My day was fantastic. You know what I did today? I slept in, and then I did some chest, hit the gym, and then I talked to my mom, and then I played with my dogs, and then I had a couple beers, I smoked a bowl, and then I got on here to talk about the Bible. Thank you. I hope you had a good day as well. Glad to see you in the chat. I appreciate you. But we're going to continue on here. Do I stream daily? No, but I definitely stream. Let me put it this way. I would say I stream 1.5 times a week. Depends on how busy I am. But it's all different shows. That's the way I do it. I am, I do this show. I do my church show where I cast out the heretics and the demons. And then I also do a show with my buddies where we talk about, we criticize their golf game, even though I don't play golf. Where am I from? I'm from New York State. That's about all you're getting. All right. Let's see. Appreciate you being here, though. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's a beautiful sanctuary that I have here. Oh, New York State, you mean? Thank you. You're very kind. All right, well, I hope you keep tuning in. Why don't you throw me a follow? We're looking for follows tonight. And we're just trying to protect people out there. We're protecting people from bad ideas.
To us. And so I don't think the Bolshevik Revolution, and I would love to hear your thoughts, it's not the first time that ethnic conflict has been or will be exploited towards violence and towards regime change. What do you think of that?
That is quite correct. And that's exactly my analysis in chapter 3 of Cultural Critique. That
well, I think I have a lot of I don't know. I guess I haven't added things because I mean I could. There's a lot of other things I have. I can switch up scenes. Oh, do you now? Okay. Well, maybe we can connect. Throw me a follow. I do have Discord. Let me see here. I'll give you a Discord app. We can discuss offline at some point. Not sure I'll be able to. Yeah, no, I'll check. I'll drop the Discord in the chat. I'm not positive I'll be able to get back to you tonight because when I'm done, I'm gonna have to be done. It's getting late, and I'm working through this video though. I'm getting through it, but I definitely will drop it in. You could throw me some stuff in there. I would enjoy that. That would be great. I appreciate that. Let me grab you my link. Oh, you got? Oh, okay. All right. Do that. All right. No, I will. Thank you. I will add you. I'm gonna finish up this,
what happened
and then I'll add
the
you
Bolshevik Revolution
when I'm
is that
ending, which is going to be in a few minutes. So.
Well, not just one group, but
appreciate
a
you.
lot
Thank
of them.
you
The Jews
so
were
much.
certainly very prominent, the most prominent of the other ethnic groups, and they had no mercy. There's hatred towards the Russians, and there's one lesson that comes out of this: you don't want to get in a situation where you are a minority, or where you or a majority that is ruled by a hostile ethnic group. And of course, that's what we have here now, where our elite is hostile towards the people and culture of America, the Christian culture, traditional Christian culture in America, the white homogeneous majority that.
Yeah, no, I will, but I'm not going to do it right at the moment because I'm in the middle of doing this. But I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you wanting to connect. So we will do that.
Really was
Thank
there
you.
when I was growing up, really until after the 1965 immigration law, and changing gradually after that. But now we've imported, many millions, 65 million or something, and now we are on the verge of being a minority. If you look at the children, most children are non-white in this country. So we have a huge problem ahead of us, and we have to, as an evolutionist, I don't think human nature is going to change. I think that the hostility, and we already see the hostility toward white people. We're blamed for everything, and we're the bad guys of human history. And when you have that attitude, and it's very widespread, and you even see it, in places like MSNBC and other major media figures. So that's a very scary proposition. But yeah, they were very committed. They hated the Russians. They hated Christianity. They loved burning down the churches or making the churches into reading rooms or something. And then that went on for, decades. But especially in the first, Jews actually lost power in the Soviet Union after World War II.
They did.
They started getting pushed out by Russians.
You found me on Instagram? Yeah, I'll follow you back. Let me look. If you found me on Instagram, I'll get you. Because that's easy. You did. Let's see. Very nice. Yes, I will follow you. You got it. You got the follow back. That's the easiest way.
And then you had the movement of neocons in this country, neoconservatives. One of the big issues early on was that Jews were being persecuted in the Soviet Union. Can't have that.
Yeah,
so they
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Got the bill to allow Jewish immigration from Russia. It was a big deal. And so the Jews have definitely were involved in the first decades. And those first decades were until 20 million Russians were murdered. Think about that, 20 million. I mean, it's mind-boggling to even imagine it. Because
the 20 million number, as far as I understand, it's not 20 million Russians. That's bullshit. 20 million is the total. And you can think about it whatever you want. Like, obviously, Pastor Doobies isn't a big fan of death, but there's a shit ton of Nazis included in that number. And like, what do you do? What do you do with a group of people that is so dead set against you for either irrational reasons or because they view you as a threat to their power? Want to kill you? You know, like, what do you do with those people? What do you do? I'm not saying it's an easy question. To me, I want to live with as many people as possible. I want as many people to be blessed as possible on the planet, whether they believe the same thing as me or not. I want them to be blessed. Doesn't seem like it's the same with these people, though. It doesn't seem like it's the same. They want to paint me as a threat because I believe that. They're trying to paint my desire to include more people as some kind of secret plot to destroy what they have. I mean, in modern history, it is the people that these guys want to represent. Their idyllic past is the colonialists and, you know, European domination and genocide and chattel slavery. That is what they view as what's good, and the fact that that is threatened means that everyone else wants to wipe them out. But wiping them out would be wiping me out, right? And I don't feel any kind of threat like that. I'm not scared. I don't sit here scared that everyone wants to kill me because I'm white. I've never thought about that. Literally ever. Right? And it's not to say that people can't hate me because I'm white. Like, I'm sure that can happen. But it's not an issue. If you walk around thinking about that, especially in the United States of America, you have a real problem with, like, you're a paranoid person. You're paranoid.
People were just executed summarily. If you had a bourgeois background, you were automatically suspect. Brutal times.
They had no problem with group identity. So Europeans won't think in groups, but your enemy, if it comes to that in ethnic warfare, they will absolutely use categories to bucket you. Well, but I was a supporter of BLM. I'm a progressive. It's not very likely that that would save you if it came to that point.
Irina, who bled out and died alone on a train, was a supporter of BLM. It did not save her.
Right, the black man. Oh, you're one of the good ones. No, he didn't care. No. I want to hear from you. Maybe this is the last movement we'll cover on neoconservatism, because that switch that happened, a lot of people don't realize, like you said, Jews very prominent. I mean, Karl Marx was Jewish for one. Others, Joseph Stalin was not Jewish. Jews very represented early on in the Soviet Union, but eventually, like you said, it turned on them. And obviously, Germany and the other European countries, they were not very welcomed as well. And so neoconservatism, it's not as simple. It's not simply for Jews, for Jewish interests, and you get into, in the book, the criteria for examining something as a Jewish interest. It needs to be explicitly for, it needs to have the weight of Jewish organizations behind it. But with the switch to neoconservatism, Jews saw on the left that they were unwelcome. And then what happened in the 60s and 70s, they said, our interests, the protection of Israel, among other things for the Zionists, that doesn't seem to be in their interest at all. They're not going to protect us. They're not going to look out for us. And so you have this movement, and people think, well, Jews and leftist movements, but neoconservatism, I mean, conservatism is right there in it, is also too a movement very much so to advance Jewish interests. And what will often happen in these movements, which you explain well in the book, it won't always be comprised of Jews or even be...
No, that's bullshit. That's 100% bullshit, because the neocon attempt to push Zionism is like the most flagrant act of like basically America using the nation state of Israel for its own purposes. The neocons show that America is the one that's in charge. It's not the Jews or like world Jewry, as Nick Fuentes would like to say, right? It's not that. It's not any of that shit. It's ridiculous to think that stuff. Do you get me? I don't know. Like, this is, I get worried because I have so many people in my life who I don't think are unintelligent, who I just expect more from, and they fall for shit that, like this, you know? And I kind of understand, because as I've said, there's like a lot of things I agree with. It's just the emphases and the direction that they try to pull you in with their facts. It's the way they narrativize things.
The majority. But they will have people that are friendly to their interests serve at the face. And so then when criticism comes, well, it seems like this whole organization exists for Jewish interests. They can say, well, hold on. This Jew is not involved in this movement. And here in this movement, George W. Bush, Nikki Haley, they're not Jewish. They're not advancing Jewish interests. That's one of the ways that criticism is deflected. So
George W. Bush and Nikki Haley don't give two fucks about, like, pushing Jewish interests. They're pushing American interests, which may, for a time, like, coincide with the interests of Zionists, right? But to say that it's about Jews, it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? This is psychotic. This is crazy talk. This is just straight racism, bigotry, hatred. It's funny because he's really, like, digging in now. He's digging in.
If you could, I would love to hear Strauss and Jaffa come to mind, among others, the progenitors and the leaders of neoconservatism, the fathers of it as an idea, their involvement, and then how you would make the best defense that neoconservatism, in some ways, perhaps not all, is still a very Jewish movement, even despite being on the right.
Yes, I mean, and because Jews are only 2 or 3% of the population, they have to make allies.
No, here's the thing, right? For American capital, Israel is important, right? Strategically, we need Israel. As Joe Biden famously said, if there were not an Israel, we would need to create one, right? Because it is so important to the American interests in the Middle East, American oil interests, capital interests, generally controlling trade routes, things like that. Israel is extremely important for the United States of America. But these guys hate Jews so much that they are willing to apparently sacrifice the American dominance in the region to, like, fuck over Jewish people. Which won't even, like, it'll fuck over Zionism. It's not going to necessarily fuck over Jewish people. The thing that fucks over Jewish people is their attitude towards Jewish people. And the fucking stupid bullshit conspiracy theories that these guys believe in. But what the fuck, man? This is crazy. It's getting, Pastor Doobie's prophecy is going to come true. It's not, that's not good news. It's not good news.
And that's especially true if you're involved in a political movement. You have to try to get, votes ultimately. And so with the neocons, that is always very important. And they, early on, had people like Jane Kirkpatrick and other people like that. And some of these people really have the same ideas. They strongly back Israel, and maybe for religious reasons, maybe for foreign policy reasons, that it's good for America. But the point is, they are then welcomed into this movement because they're on page with that. And so what the Jews have been very good at is establishing a very elaborate infrastructure. If you have ideas that these people like, you can get a job, you can you can work for them, write for them, advocate for them, lobby for them. and they'll welcome you because they need allies, and that's always true. In the academic world, as soon as Jews really climb the top of the academic world, the Ivy League universities and so on, you start to see departments of Black studies, of Chicano studies, Latino studies, Jewish studies, Asian studies. These are all allies.
Bro, all right, this ties back to what they were saying about how all the other, like, white people don't think about themselves as a group, which was a bait and switch from the jump, right? They talked about that earlier on. And now they're talking about how what the Jewish people want to do is this fucking CRT shit. Right? Like critical race theory, DEI. They want to teach Jewish history, Black history, African American history, Latin American history, Chinese history, whatever, right? Like they want to teach these things, and it's because of the Jews. Like it's very strange, right? Because as I said earlier, and I think this is pretty obvious, in America where these people live, white is the default, right? So what we consider history, right? When we're thinking history, we're thinking overwhelmingly about works that were written by like white Europeans, right? White Europeans doing an analysis on people from Africa, white Europeans doing an analysis on the Middle East, white Europeans doing an analysis on Native Americans, right? But if you have other documents, other scholars who are saying, yeah, but you know what? White Europeans, not the only people around at that time. So they're biased, right? So why not allow for very openly and honestly biased perspectives that aren't white and European, right? Amerindian or Black American, Latin American, women, right? Feminine, feminist, yeah, womanist, right? Like all of these different things. Like, why not say, yeah, we were around too, right? And there are other writings and stuff. So if we want to really understand what was going on at the time, wouldn't it be wise for us to have as much possible information from as many different biased perspectives as possible, because all there is bias, right? This is the way the white neutrality or the white default functions, though, right? The fact of the matter is that it works in their favor, and they're just like, they're adding on here because history is white, European, and American. But it's also biased, right? You don't need white liberation theology or white history, because that's just history. Like, that's just history. And it is biased because it doesn't take into account the slave. It doesn't take into account the Amerindian. It doesn't take into account the the people like the Muslim in the Middle East, right? The Kurd or the Arabian or the Turk, like all the differences. Like, it just doesn't take into account the different way that people perceive things. And to me, I guess knowledge is, I would want to know like as much as I can, and though I won't be able to like put it all together or make full sense of it or completely understand, I'm at least not taking one biased position over another. So when these guys come out and be like, no, we actually need to be more actively white and push for our views, all they're doing is making what is like saying the quiet part out loud. Really, they're bringing out this like what was the default and saying, no, we actually weren't doing that. Now we need to be more forceful and trying to put yourself on an even playing field with people who, who at least traditionally have not had like the same amount of say as you, and acting like you're in the victim position. So you need to be more vocal and more oppressive. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Like it's if you are a white American Christian, you've never been a victim of shit, is what the point is. Like, and if you think you have and you whine about it, then you're a pussy, beta male, call it whatever you will. No one should have respect for you because you're a bitch.
All on the left, and they're on the same page, basically. They're all activists. And so what Jews have always done is recruit other peoples. And you still see that now. There are actually Jewish organizations that reach out to these non-white ethnic groups and attempt to make alliance. And not so easy with the Muslims because of what's happened in the Middle East. And you see a lot of conflict there. And the Jews are very concerned about the mayor of New York, Mamdani, because he has made pro-Palestinian statements and that sort of thing. But that's what Jews have to do as a minority group. They have to recruit non-Jews. And people like John Bolton come to mind. But, you look at the Wall Street Journal editorial page, all these outlets, Fox News, basically, they are neoconservative. And so, Mark Levin is fascinating in this regard. I mean, I used to get bored watching Mark Levin on Fox News on Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening, whatever it was, and he just talked about the Constitution and stuff. And he's the most boring guy you ever heard. All of a sudden now, with Israel, he is freaking out and screaming at the top of his lungs about everything. It's not the old Mark Levin, because he's really involved in his big cause of Israel, and cares about nothing else about this country.
Yeah, that's how it seems. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and that's kind of the theme of your book, is that any minority group, if they had the intelligence and the social mobility, they would do these things too. That's why Jews have been successful. They are reasonably intelligent. They have a decent amount of social capacity. You mentioned as well psychological intensity. They have affect. They have emotion. They feel these things deeply. And so any group, if they were capable of it, if Somalians were capable of it, and we see them trying, they would take over and they would have, the American Somalian Congress. But of course, they don't. But you do have a group here, and we just...
No, not everyone thinks that way. It's not everyone who thinks the way that you think. You're just you're a paranoid beta bigot. Look at this guy, man. He's an ugly person, too. I think that's the problem. He's very self-conscious about how he looks. I feel bad for you, man. I'll pray for you.
So much in just reading the book. This is all just objective fact. It's not anti-Semitic to talk about it. It doesn't imply terrible, immoral solutions. But we do have to say, hey, these group of people, in addition to maybe being American, they've been here for 10 generations. At some level, they have an allegiance much more narrow and much more self-inclined to a small group of people. And you should be able to say that openly. Hey, people from Somalia have interests that align with other people from Somalia. People like we meet for church in a little German town called Walberg. Well, there's lots of things that are very German about that town. And we would say that there are German descended people with relics of the German homeland that they came from with German food and German beer and German music and German dancing. Those are the things that they love. So why is it then that there's one group in America that similarly have those interests, but they're socially and politically mobile, high intelligence, and have been very successful, and that group, we're not allowed to say anything about that dynamic at all? We just simply have to end that taboo. It has to end. We have to be able to say,
what the fuck,
hey, that actually might not be in America's interest, and it is being advanced.
Bro, yeah. All right, so they're doing the dual loyalty sort of thing with everyone, and I'm not sure how I feel about the whole dual loyalty issue now, because I guess Pastor Doobies is kind of convinced that nation states are kind of a farce at this point. I don't think our rulers and overlords that these people think we should bow the knee to really give a fuck about nation states. They give a fuck about their own family name. It's sort of a return to like very old Bedouin style lives, right? Extended families, without a real home, but dominating certain regions. But now it's global, so I guess it's all regions. That's the way I think about it. I don't believe that Donald Trump, for example, gives two shits about the United States of America. He would sell it for fucking a hotel. And I don't think that's an uncommon idea amongst global leaders for the most part. It's more about neo-colonialism than it is about old school colonialism, right? Donald Trump this is the thing, right? Like in the past, you would have to like actually conquer supposedly Venezuela, right? Like George Bush went into Iraq and felt like we basically needed to go in, install a brand new government that is favorable towards America, and then create this whole image that we're spreading democracy and they're going to be better. Now, what we do is we go in, we send in like a small amount of special forces, we kidnap the leader, and then we pressure whoever is left to be in charge to allow American corporations to just come in and take over their natural resources, which was always like the end game. So there's a sense in which what Trump is doing is far more efficient than what was done in Iraq. But I also like hope, at least, like I think a lot of Americans, especially those that went from Obama to Trump in 2016, a lot of those were pissed off about the way that the financial crisis was handled. They were pissed off about the Iraq war and Afghanistan and the fact that we went in there and under false pretenses attacked this country, lost a lot of American lives, all over oil, because it wasn't for the benefit of Americans at all. It was just for the benefit of a few Americans who had close connections to the administration, right? That those people were really against like all of that. Like we shouldn't be doing that, like any of that. And I hope that continues, because what Trump has done is just gone more efficient on that. He's trying to just steal all of the oil, to say that the people of that nation do not have rights that are as important as the rights of American corporations. The people of Venezuela do not have a say, right? And this is not to like give credit to Maduro. I'm not going to pretend like I know a lot about Venezuelan politics, but I know enough about American politics to say that that's what's going on. And I hope Americans can like see through the bullshit and say, no, like on principle, this is still wrong. Because if you were only concerned about losing American lives, you're a fool. Because the people that did that don't give a fuck about you either, and it's only a matter of time before you're treated in exactly the same manner.
Because we know at a certain level you have a biological loyalty to this group of people.
That's all that Tucker is saying, for example. He's not seen as a Nazi. He and Candace Owens often called Nazis now. And all he's saying is, hey, I'm critical of the fact that the Israel lobby is so influential in American foreign policy.
I think this was probably filmed before the recent Candace Owens issues. It came out around the same time as Candace Owens was like really popping with her Charlie Kirk shit. So I can't say for sure, but I guess it's interesting. A lot of people turned against Candace Owens. A lot of right wingers.
And
got real racist.
Talked about the war with Iran recently, but also the Iraq war, and this is the general power that they have in Washington, and that is way too much for these people. So yeah, I mean, we have to combat that. We have to simply state it. We have to try to get the facts right as best we can. And I'm always open for debate on these. And what I say, I try to get good sources. But it's an uphill struggle, and I am kept out of the mainstream media, and it really disappoints me that is the case. And I'm sure you probably feel the same way. But everybody, there are lines that are drawn, and people dare not cross them without severe consequences. And this is, talking about the Jews is way up there, because you're talking about an elite group in the society, well funded, and they are fund all their interests.
No, I mean, see, while I do believe that Zionists have abused the Holocaust and the fact that the Holocaust happened, and attempted to use the Holocaust to make people who oppose the genocide look bad, guys like this bring up these points because they're trying to play down the Holocaust. The Holocaust happened, man. There's reasons that Jewish people should be scared, right? There are. Anti-Semitism is on the rise because of motherfuckers like this guy. Look at him, man. Look at this guy. Look at this. Bro, these people are so fucking pathetic. But unfortunately, I have to show you their faces.
And
Trigger
projects,
warning.
the infrastructure, the neoconservatives, the left, and much else. So, powerful group, and we have to be able to talk about them.
Yep.
Just to give one more plug for your book, I was going to say, over 600 pages, The Culture of Critique, 3rd edition.
Oh my
Very well
God.
footnoted. This is a well-documented, well-researched book.
pages
The last
of
60 pages of it
anti-Semitism.
are references, and most of it you're often citing Jews in their own words. So, just to say, you've done a great job of going through, here's their own words, here's what they've said, make a conclusion for yourself.
Yep. Well done. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. And is there
Wow,
any
we
way
made
that
it
our
through the
listeners
whole
could
thing.
follow you?
All right, so I wouldn't ever say not to read any book. I would say go for it if this is something that interests you. If this is something that you think should be addressed, then go ahead, read it. But I'm not going to waste my time, because based on what he said, he was just rehashing the same old anti-Semitic bullshit that we've been hearing for the last century. Right? But who am I to say? Maybe someone else is more, interested in dealing with what these scumbags have to say on that level. I'd actually be more interested in boxing Joel Webbin. I would like to get in the ring with him. We can each train for a few months, and then we'll get in there, and I'll make him feel like the little fucking bitch he is. He's a pussy. Look at him. He's a bitch. Little anti-Semitic bitch. Little bully.
And keep up with your work.
I don't need to keep watching that. All right, well, it was a beautiful stream, I thought. I had a good time. As good of a time as you can have listening to the worst people on earth. Yeah, we'll be back sooner than later. Unfortunately, next time we're going to be watching Joel Webbin with Nick Fuentes. And then, that should complete our little series. But for the Bushman Entertainment Network, I am your pastor again. The Reverend These people are so dumb. The Reverend Roland Doobies, the pastor of disaster, the Pope of dope, here to take out every heretic in the American church. If you want to go to heaven, I'm your guy. Jesus is your guy. But you can follow me because it's never just about Jesus. You can follow this loser, Joel Webbin, and his partner, who looks like he was born out of a relationship between his mother and his mother's brother. So